Hi, this is Sweet Life and I'm Natasha, sharing my experience and tips for visiting Reading Terminal Market. Reading Terminal Market is located in Philadelphia's Center City. It's just walking distance from the Pennsylvania Convention Center, Philadelphia City Hall, Chinatown, as well as the Constitution Center where the Liberty Bell is located. I arrived in town on a Friday afternoon and got my rental car, drove towards Center City. I purchased tickets to the African American Museum, and these were time tickets, so I had like an hour or so of time to kill before my entry time arrived for the museum. And it was just a straight walk down Arch Street to the Reading Terminal Market, so I decided to go there to kill a little bit of time. I'd visited Philly back in 2011 on a photography day trip, and it was one of the places that I remembered seeing that stood out to me. Over the years, watching travel shows about food, I'd seen a few different shows visit the location, and then I had the opportunity to visit during my 2011 trip. And when I went in 2011, I don't really remember actually purchasing anything I was on a photography walk and we just did like a really quick walkthrough. And so, you have this history of the Pennsylvania Dutch, you have some Amish communities and whatnot in the area, which I remembered from my visit in 2011. And it was much the same this time around. Nowadays, many people, myself included, we mostly do our grocery shopping at supermarkets where you go, the food is packaged, you just buy what you need. But several cities still have these types of markets. For some, they might be farmers markets, places where you would go to buy fresh meat, seafood, fruits, vegetables. But markets tend to be one of those places that I've really come to enjoy visiting, especially within the last few years of travel. The reason being that on a basic level, most sell like fish, meat, things like that, but also fresh produce, fruits. But some also sell like pre-made things that you can buy that are ready to eat. There are restaurants, there might be kiosks, stalls. And the reason that I like visiting these markets is because they tend to be local. These aren't really the type of markets where you're going to find like national brands or some, far-flung type item. So some of those places, because of the nature of the shops within them, they're geared towards a particular market, towards a particular group of people. So they might have imported goods. With this market, it's more like local goods, products and other goods for sale that are from, if not within the immediate area, then the farthest is like the region. And so with that, you get some insight into local foods, things that are popular in the area. It presents an opportunity to try a variety of different local foods. Some of the stalls, they lean towards being more, let's say, proper restaurants. Especially if they're like sit-down establishments, then the food can be a little bit more pricey, but they tend to have several kiosks and stalls at which you can buy snacks and treats that are local to the area. And so because those items tend to be a little bit cheaper, it gives you an opportunity to try a wide variety of local foods. It's like, sure, you might be able, if you were determined to find like a Hershey's candy bar, a Snickers or something like that, but when you go into most local markets, within like a specific city or something like that, they'll have their own regional treats. So for example, when I went to New Orleans, they have like pralines. Beignets are very popular. So you can find that in their markets. Like pizza. You have pizza in New York, which is like that thin crust pizza. But then if you go to Chicago, they have deep dish. If you go to other parts of the country, they have like their own variations. It might be different toppings. It might be different styles of crust. Same thing with barbecue, where you go to Texas, barbecue leans more towards being beef. Pork is more widely used in other states and cities. You have vinegar-based sauces, mustard-based sauces, and then in some other areas, they do dry rubs versus wet sauces. You get a chance to lean into and learn about whatever the local or regional food culture might be. And it's like instead of these places being spread out, they're all under one roof, so you don't have very far to travel. Reading Terminal Market has been around for quite some time. It was established back in 1893, and when you go there, obviously it's been updated since then. But there's like a number of different vendors selling within the market. You can get your typical things like ice cream, hot dogs, burgers, like mainstream food like that. But then there's also like the local influence, where you can get sweets that are more popular within the region, that are like home to the region. And you also have like local takes on more mainstream types of food. So like food from other parts of the world that are to some degree adapted for the region. In visiting Reading, I didn't eat at too many places, but it was cool to walk around to see what various vendors had on display. But let's get to some of the places that I saw. One of the places that I especially remember was a stand for a bakery, which was, I think the name is pronounced Baylor Bakery. And this place had a really nice display. Their stand was actually quite large, and you had a wide variety of different baked goods and desserts. So different loaf cakes, like they had a cranberry orange nut loaf cake, if you think of like banana bread or banana nut bread. They had several variations along those lines. You had different kinds of sweet rolls. So if you think of like monkey bread or like a cinnamon bun. There were like a variety of pies, apple pie, cherry pie, different types of cookies. And then beyond that, various types of breads, just a wide variety of baked goods to choose from. They also had, so their stand was actually kind of split in two, where you had one stand off in the corner that like wrapped around the corner, and that had like a bunch of different kinds of baked goods. Then across from that, you had like a donut counter, and it's like 1,000,001 different types of donuts. I'm not the biggest donut fan, but they had some that actually looked quite good. You had like, obviously like your glaze, your chocolate, things like that. But then it's like they had them with different toppings, different fillings. So it's like, if you like donuts, if you were looking for something, you could certainly find something within that mix. There's quite a few counters where, for example, with Baylor's, they're pretty much sweets, right? They might have like one or two types of savory goods, but for the most part, it's baked goods, sweet items, desserts. There was a creperie where they offered both sweet and savory crepes. So for myself, typically when I think about crepes, I think of them being filled with fruit. Maybe jam, Nutella, something along those lines. I know banana and chocolate is a pretty popular combination, but generally I tend to think of crepes as being a sweet thing. But in this case, the Prophet Creperie also offered savory options, so like cheeses, meats, and whatnot, a wide variety of options to choose from. The Flying Monkey was another place that had a variety of baked goods, items ranging from cakes to cookies, brownies, pies, and maybe it's something that's like pretty popular in Philly. They had these whoopie pies, I think they're called, which if you think of like sandwich cookies, but instead of like the sandwich being the cookie, it's like a cake. And then inside you have this cream filling. And with that, they had like a few different flavors. Terminal Bros was another baked goods place, but they leaned a little bit more Italian. So you have your typical cakes, cupcakes and whatnot, but they also had cannolis, biscotti. Mueller Chocolate Company had a variety of different chocolate treats. So like your typical chocolate candies, but like in different flavors. And some of them were topped with like designs. But what really stood out to me was that they had a wide variety of truffles. So differently flavored truffles. And then based on what the flavor was inside, some of them had decorations on the outside like, swirls and whatnot to give some indication as to what the filling was. In addition, they had like some chocolate dipped items. So if you think of candy apples, but instead of that bright red hard shell candy, it was chocolate. And then for savory, they have like a few different options as far as like restaurants. There's a fried chicken and waffle place. I'm not the biggest fan of fried chicken, so that's not something that I would go for, or at least not regular fried chicken. It's got to be spicy for me. You had places with like a bunch of different pickles. And then you had Sankey, which was like a Peking duck place. And I love Peking duck. That drew my eyes right away. One of the things that I love about these kinds of places, like restaurants or places, and this comes from growing up in New York and going to Chinatown, is I love when you walk by these restaurants and they have these ducks hanging in the window. They have like that really nice, smooth, brown looking skin that's just brown to perfection. And it has like a really nice shine to it. I love Peking duck. I love the presentation of it. A lot of places when you go to them, they'll have like the Peking duck hanging, which to me is like the centerpiece. But then they'll also have like ribs and whatnot hanging in the case as well. So I think it's a really great promotion because you see that hanging in the window, you're looking for something to eat, and it just draws you in. In addition to your prepared foods, you have like fresh foods as well. So being that I was a tourist visiting and I was staying at a hotel, I wasn't really looking to buy any of that kind of stuff. But you can certainly get produce, So like vegetables to cook, fruit, which actually is a good option if you're looking for a healthy snack. Because sometimes when I'm visiting a city, I'll get like bottled water and I'll keep it at the hotel. And I'll have like my water bottle, which I'll pour that into. But I'll also get like snacks. So it's like, you might have plans for lunch or breakfast, dinner, or whatever it is. But then in between, say I'm walking through a museum or something, I don't necessarily want to leave where I'm at to go find food. And I might just need something small to tide me over. So it's like sometimes I'll stop off at a local market and I'll get like granola bars or like apples or something like that. So if you're in the area visiting and you're looking for a snack, you can certainly stop in here. You're guaranteed to find some kind of fruit, some kind of baked good or something, and even like healthy options to pick up. I know for myself when I was a kid growing up and living on Flatbush, you certainly had supermarkets, but I do remember at one point there were like actual standalone butcher shops. And, you still have some that are around. I've walked by some of them here in Atlanta, but within the market you have, I think it's like L. Walkerman's Family Country Foods, and they sell fresh meat. So it's pretty much like a butcher shop, but once again, this isn't a standalone place. It's within the market. I don't know if they have any other locations, but watching cooking shows, reading food magazines, just really having an interest in food, I think it's kind of nice when you live in a community where you have these kinds of options because when you go into like a supermarket, it's really just the same basic cuts. But it's kind of cool if you can go to a local butcher shop and you can get like specialty items, or you can request a special cut. And so it's like kind of cool to see like various steaks and whatnot laid out. I visited the terminal market on the first day because it was one of the places that I was most familiar with, and it was within walking distance to some other places I was planning to go sightseeing. And so on a few occasions over the days when I was in town, I went back and just kind of picked up snacks. So the first day when I was looking to bide some time, I walked around and kind of saw what was on offer, and I got an ice cream cone. And then on one of the other days, I went to a different kiosk and I got like a fruit smoothie, and I got like some other little snacks along the way. So I like places like this in part because I love photography, and one of my favorite things to take pictures of is food. So I like going to these kinds of places where they have such a wide variety of things on display, and they're very nicely displayed. So walking through, I enjoyed taking pictures. From a photography perspective, it was really cool. But then also from a food perspective of actually eating and trying things, that was cool too. Because you can find some pretty reasonably priced items to purchase and to eat. And so like I said, this is like a nice little cool spot to check out. You have some items that are more regional, like some of the baked goods, things that are popular within the nearby area. And so it's like a cool spot to check out to get a lay of the land if you're coming into town, right? And kind of want to get some perspectives on food. You can certainly branch out and do more traditional restaurants, which I also did. But I think it's like a nice place to visit if you're into food, if you're into photography, if you're into like getting that local experience and getting an idea of local food culture.
Thanks for tuning in. To ensure you don't miss any episodes, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, go ahead and click that thumbs up button if you like what you saw, and go ahead and share it on social media.